Welcome to Building My Legacy podcast. This podcast is designed for leaders and entrepreneurs who want to leave a legacy and will provide strategies that focus upon key elements for legacy creation, determining your desired impact and its benefit, increasing your legacy's reach by engaging key stakeholders, planning, prioritizing, and executing. Here's your host, Dr. Lois Sonstegard.
Welcome, everybody, to today's Building My Legacy podcast. I have with me today Danielle Mulvey. She has a company called All In Company, and I think for today's world right now, what she has to share with us is something everybody wants to know, and that is, how do you get a 5-star employee? How do you find them? How do you keep them? It's the keeping them right now that is sort of the big question. But I think keeping them becomes a problem when you haven't found them to begin with.
True.
So before we get started, though, share with people a little bit your background, just to let people know she has had multiple companies in which she has carried the companies over $50 million in annual revenue. And she's done that while spending, she says, 10 hours a week managing those companies. So knowing how you've done that, I'm guessing it's partly because of your view of employees and how you manage them. And then secondly, she has written a book called The Rapid Real Guide to the 5-Star Employee Rating System, and is currently in the process of writing a second book with Mike Michalowicz, who in the name of your book is All In, How to Get Your Employees to Act Like Owners. So just exactly what people want. How did you get started into this field? What's been your journey?
Yeah. So I started my first company at the ripe old age of 25, which was just shy of 25 years ago. And when I started my first company really young, my hiring strategy was to hire people who were younger than me. And because if I was screwing up or I didn't really know what I was doing, they would never know because I was their first job. And I was lucky. I had some really great employees out of the gate. And, I just kind of continued with that hiring strategy. And then one day I made a hire. And, following the same methodology, it was actually someone whose it was the brother of someone I went to college with. And then he was the fraternity brother of one of my employees. So I thought, oh, there's a lot of familiarity here. This will be great. And we brought him on board. And I don't know exactly, how many weeks or if it was a month or 2 months into him being with the company, I woke up on a Monday morning and said, can I call fake sick into my own company? Because I had just this dread of not looking forward to going into my own company because I was going to have to deal with this guy yet another week. And that was really my aha of like, okay, like obviously I have no clue what I'm doing when it comes to hiring people. So I just went all in on trying to figure out how not to make this same mistake and how to, get smart and intelligent about hiring, become consistent with hiring. And so I just became like a big nerd and a big student of hiring. I read Top Grading. I mean, that book is like a thick book of just like lots of research and just did whatever I could to study things and to make things better. But then I started to like really create a process and system for my business. And then flash forward, after having kids and my husband and I relocating back to where I'm from in California, starting 2 businesses in 2010 out here. And, those businesses grew and, because I was still using my same hiring practices that I had kind of cultivated. But then the challenge became, okay, we opened up an office out of state in Indiana. So then I kind of had to figure out, well, how can I translate this into, hiring people where I'm not located and such. And And then, my kids, they kind of don't need me as much anymore. And I had designed, my life to work 10 hours a week, and overseeing those operations, because we do have 5-star employees. We have people that, have been with us for a really long time, and they do a fantastic job, and they do a job better than I could do in any of the things that they do, from bookkeeping to claims processing, depending upon the business and such. And so then Mike Michalowicz and I have known each other for a while. And, I'm actually the host of Profit First Nation, which is the official podcast for Profit First. Mike wrote the book Profit First. And so, we've known each other, and talking to entrepreneurs and talking to, people implementing Profit First or struggling with profitability in their business. What was really interesting was that businesses with 10 or more employees, $1 million or more in real revenue, were struggling with their profitability because they had an inflated payroll. Their expenses on payroll were too high because they had too many average or ho-hum employees. They didn't have a 5-star employee. When you have a 5-star employee, one 5-star employee does the work of 2 or 3, 1, 2 or 3-star employees. So why settle for average or ho-hum employees? That's just, costing you your profitability. It's inflating your payroll expenses when you are inefficient in hiring. And so when that kind of like, okay, well, here's, we've helped people with cash management with Profit First. Now let's help people with the people problem, because that's kind of what's hurting them in terms of their profitability.
So Danielle, I get that, but people continue to make mistakes. So let's go through. What are the top mistakes that people make in hiring that needs to be avoided?
Yeah. So number one, not casting a wide enough net. So we define a 5-star employee as the top 15% of available talent in the market, which means 1 out of 7 candidates is a potential 5-star employee. So if you have an applicant pool of 3 or 4,
7?
1 out of 7 is a potential 5-star employee. So the top 15% of available talent. So if you only have an applicant pool of 3 or 4 candidates, statistically, you likely don't have a 5-star candidate in that. So you need to cast as wide of a net as possible, get as many applicants in as you can. If you have 21 applicants, then statistically, you are going to have 3 potential 5-star candidates to choose from. And so I think the biggest hiring mistake that people have is that they settle. They interview a few people and they're like, okay, well, out of these 3 people, I guess this person's the best. They're not totally wowed by the person. Another mistake that people make is not testing the skills. People are looking for a job, so they're going to say they can do it. They see what's needed for the job and they say, yes, I can do that. Yes, 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 I can do that. But if you fail to test them, then, what matters, saying it or doing it? Everyone can say it. We need people to show us that they can do it. So it's really important that you test for the skills and the aptitudes that you need for the role. And then another hiring mistake, I've got a list of these, would be not having them come in and do a shadow day. So, we have people do shadow days. We even have remote employees do a, 4 or 5 hour shadow day with us. So it's really important that, it's a win-win in terms of the candidate and your existing team, and that they'll fit into the culture. We've taken people through our process. We call it a gauntlet, and going through our process, at the end is when we offer people to come in for a shadow day, and it's a paid shadow day. And we've had people that, complete the shadow day and say, you know what, I'm sorry. I thought I wanted to leave property management and get into construction material supply, but no, I think I'm going to stick with property management. Thanks so much. And it's like, great. That only cost me a few hours of time. I'm so glad I didn't bring this person in and, take on the expense of onboarding and training them, et cetera, for them to realize 2 or 3 months later that they didn't enjoy the position. We've also brought someone in on a shadow day who, when she discovered that one of our offices is a smaller office, and so everyone likes to eat lunch together. When she realized that, she was just like, yeah, I don't I'd rather eat by myself. Like, this is a little too much for me, and so we've improved upon our processes. I mean, now we talk about that because we don't want to make that same hiring mistake, but that's where the shadow days are really just a win-win for the employer and the employee. People are talking about the Great Resignation, and the Great Resignation is really about job satisfaction and satisfaction with the culture and such where you are. And so a lot of people are, taking a job and then, a month later, 6 weeks later, 4 months later going, this culture is not for me. I'm out of here. But they didn't get to experience that culture before they made the decision to join the company. And now that company has paid them, months of salary and will never get a return on all that investment they made on onboarding that employee who left quickly.
That is so true. Shadowing helps so much. I've always used that also. And it is quite amazing how quickly you figure out what's going to work and not going to work. And interviewing just doesn't sort that same way.
You're exactly right. It doesn't sort that same way. I love it.
So tell me a little bit about your system, your 5-star system, because you've clearly put a lot of thought into this to making it really work well. Please share with the audience what you do.
Yeah. So, what's really important about hiring is, and this is why the book is called All In. This is why the company is called All In, because no one can do this for you. You have to, as the business owner or the hiring manager, you have to go all in on your recruitment and hiring and retention. If you expect employees to go all in on you, and isn't that what we want? We want employees to act like owners. We want employees to go all in on us, but it starts by the leader demonstrating going all in. So, we believe that you really need to take the time to customize and personalize your recruitment, your hiring, and your retention assets and build them. We provide templates, we provide guidance and such, but my core values are different than your core values. And so, I can't write your core values for you. So the 5-star employee rating system is, you guessed it, based off of 5 stars, 5 different criteria. And the first star is core values. So, and the core values are the true core values of the owner, or, the real organization, the real heart of the organization. And, this is where, again, if you want someone to think like you and act like you, if someone has the same core values as you, they're naturally predispositioned to think and act like you because you guys share the same core values. So you want alignment within the core values, and the core values need to be clarified. You don't just want to use like generic terms like relationships are important to us. You really need to define what you mean by relationships and how you value that. So, for one of our businesses, relationships is a core value, and, we value building long-term relationships with our customers, our vendors, and our fellow employees. And it is very true in our organization. And then the second star is the 11 qualities of a 5-star employee. So we've identified 11 qualities of a 5-star employee, and these are pretty universal qualities. And in those 11 qualities, 2 are coded red, which means they're very difficult to change, which are kind of like red flags. So if someone is, and those 2 qualities are being limber and listening. So what we mean by limber is we mean someone who is amenable to change. They're people who can pivot, who can, do this today and hey, we're going to do it a different way tomorrow. Especially entrepreneurial organizations are in need of people who are pretty limber. And then listening is one of the red qualities. So if someone doesn't listen well, if they're not a good active listener, they don't use all their senses to kind of understand everything that's going on around them, that's another red flag. And then we have 2 qualities that are green. So they're relatively easy to change. And that is one of them is learn. And, learning is something that people just don't know what they don't know. So there's a great opportunity if you bring in someone who, is kind of green at this or maybe new to the industry and such, that, you just take a little bit of time to mentor them a bit and expose them to books and podcasts and take them to trainings and things like that so that they start to become an expert in the field. So that's the 11 qualities, just 3 of them to share there. And then the next criteria are aptitudes and skills. So there are going to be very specific aptitudes and skills that you need for the role, and you'll need to assess the candidate based off the role and the specific aptitudes and skills needed for that role. And so again, we've got lists, and you customize, you decide what you want, what you don't want. Maybe creativity is important to you. And maybe it isn't for, a role and such. And then you design questions to really assess that person on the aptitude. And then you design tests to test skills. So, again, it doesn't matter what people say. They're going to say they can do it, but it matters if they can actually do it. So you need to test people on their aptitudes and skills. And, this process too is, you're doing it through interviews, you're doing it through assessments, you're doing it through tests, you're doing it through observation during the shadow days and such. Then the 4th star is key success metrics. So, this is about kind of helping you to attract the 5-star candidates and repel the 1, 2, and 3-star candidates. So on the success metrics, what you're going to do is you're going to identify 3 to 5 key responsibilities, and then you're going to objectify what success means for that key responsibility. So, most job descriptions are very blank and blah, and, just like, oh, someone who has excellent communication skills. Well, how is that measured? So, if you were needing someone with excellent communication skills, you're going to say, I need you to have excellent communication skills because one of your key responsibilities is going to be following up with our customers and doing follow up with them to make sure that they had a great experience and surveying them, et cetera. And, you need to make sure that you're getting a 50% response rate on the customers that you're following up on. So that means that you're effective in communication, but we've quantified what success looks like. It's you're getting a response from at least 50% of the people based off of your communicating with them and getting them to participate in the survey, et cetera. And then the final star in the 5-star employee rating system is return on payroll. So this kind of ties to the key responsibilities as well. And, what I talked about too, about how, having less than 5-star employees can just kill your profitability. And so what you want is you want to make sure that the role is designed to produce a 3x to 4x return on payroll. So, on payroll. So if you're paying someone $50,000 a year, they need to be, sort of producing or contributing towards $150,000 of revenue. So in the case of the job we just talked about, or the role where the person has to follow up with customers and such, this is a great opportunity in their follow-up and their survey that they would also be tasked with getting referrals. And then, those referrals, because that's part of this engine, is now translating into new customers, which is then how this produces a return on this person's payroll. So it's being real strategic about things and making sure that everyone is contributing to the success fiscally of the organization.
I like how you're measuring the ROI of an employee, because I think that is something we often miss. We're so delighted to have somebody who will work out that we forget that it's not just working out. They've got to make a contribution beyond their cost. And I think, so it's interesting that you said that also because of your emphasis on looking at profit and measuring profit, right? And the formula that you use, I love, which is revenue minus profit equals expenses.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
You want to talk a little bit about that and how you use that actually as you look at working with your employees?
Yeah. So, and you can make profit first friendly to your team. What's funny is profit is not a dirty word. It's a misunderstood word. A business without profitability is a business that is, gasping for air and won't last very long. Profit gives a business security. It gives it, cushion to weather storms. It gives it the capital to scale and to grow. So profit is a really important thing. And one thing that you can do in terms of if you implement profit first in your business is that you can do sort of a profit share with your employees by using profit first. So we do this on an annual basis. So we do this annually, but other businesses do this quarterly. So when you take your profit distribution at the end of the quarter, and you see what's in your profit hold account, you can designate a percentage that is going to be distributed amongst your employees. So typically that's, usually around 10 or 15% is what I've seen other businesses who do this. We do it again on an annual basis in December. So we kind of like are tracking it and keeping it all up. But our employees sort of just prefer that big bonus at the end of the year. So that is a way because, profit, there's only two ways to increase profit. And that is number one, increase margin. So increase prices and decrease expenses. So if your payroll is overinflated, again, businesses with 10 or more employees, especially in $1 million or more in real revenue, definitely are dragging down their profitability when they have too many average ho-hum or worse employees just collecting a paycheck.
Just collecting a paycheck. So tell me, how does a company in today's world, you go after these 5-star employees, how do you keep them?
Yeah. So you keep them by making time for them. So again, that concept of going all in, if like I've worked myself into the best role. So like, I'm not competing with my employees. I'm working on my business by working 10 hours a week. I mean, the All In Company is a bit of a startup. So like I'm in that, getting it, all going and stuff while we're working on the book and getting the case studies for the book going. But for my other businesses, by spending 10 hours a week, I have now the time and the flexibility to be supportive of my employees. I find that especially people, when they're making their first few hires and such, they're so busy working in the business that they don't have time to nurture their employees and work with their employees and be supportive of their employees. So my role is to be like listening and be supportive of my employees. And, if there's a special project or if there's something that needs to, that we can improve upon and such. I mean, I'm very strategic in my organizations and that's my best role. So my employees know that they're not afraid if they've got a question, like I'm available because I'm not working on a deadline, trying to do something, which a lot of people end up doing. So you kind of have to like find this right balance. If you find the right people, then you don't have to work in the business so much anymore. But if you have the wrong people, then you just sort of get tired and frustrated and you're like, oh, fine, I'll just do it myself. And that person still collects a paycheck.
You know what? We have all done that, haven't we? Where
yes, we have.
Oh, I'm going to just do it myself. Far easier and far less hassle with people with their feelings hurt, animosities within the organization, and the list goes on.
So right there, if you have those feelings, then you have the wrong person in that seat on your bus.
The wrong
because
person.
You should, like the people that I have can do these jobs better than I could. So, it's if you make the right hiring decision, then your load gets lifted, and there's less burden on you.
Yes. So you talk about the buffalo.
Yeah.
And what an entrepreneur can learn from the buffalo, please tell us about
Yes.
that. We have buffalo in the Midwest, and so
Yeah.
more in the West than here, but yes.
Yeah. So, I mean, if anyone's been on a road trip, been through, long stretches of pasture and fields, everyone has seen cows on the side of the road. And what do cows on the side of the road to do? They just sort of graze, meander, just kind of go slowly. Well, in the plains, especially, you've got storms coming in. And when a storm comes in and the cow sees it over their shoulder, what does the cow do? They just sort of like, all right, here it comes. I better just keep walking, see if I can like get away from it. And so they go in the direction that the storm is going. And what's going to happen? The storm is eventually going to catch up with them and just be on top of them while they're grazing. And then the storm will pass over them, but they'll be in the storm for the long haul. A buffalo, on the other hand, sees the storm and says, oh, I got this. And they turn directly towards the storm. They charge at the storm to get through the storm quickly, because it's like, boom, crossing instead of something catching up with you and staying over you for the long haul. So that's the difference between cows and how most people operate. Is they just sort of like, they put it off, they put it off, they put it off. They just keep going and do nothing, don't change anything. And the buffalo says, screw this, I'm changing direction and I'm charging through this. And so what entrepreneurs need to do is, when you realize you have a problem, that's your time to fix it. And so, if you have struggled with hiring 5-star employees, that means that you don't have a good process. You don't have a good system. You're not going to get the 10 hours that you dream of that will happen over 2 days in business to make this happen. So we challenge you to like take this by the horns, and be a buffalo and charge through it. And work intensively on improving your processes in your system. Implementing the 5-star rating system is not as painful as it sounds if you just like know where you're going and charge through it.
I think it's knowing where you're going that is often so difficult, right? And in the young companies, when you're first starting out up to about $1 million, you're still trying to find your identity often.
True. Yes.
So it becomes very difficult for many people. So, Danielle, our time is almost up. What have we not talked about that the audience should know about? I love how you have simplified this. So, what have we missed?
I think the thing is to just never settle. So if I didn't say never settle 20 times in this podcast, then I've just said it now, hopefully for the 20th time. You never want to settle for less than 5-star employees. Don't settle for average or ho-hum. They're going to kill your profitability. If you're wanting someone to do like 3 different things and you think you need a sparkly rainbow unicorn to do the job, then break it up. Like, instead of having, your first hire or your first, one of your first significant hires being an admin who, manages your inbox, onboards new clients, and is your social media manager and such, that's too much for one person. No one's going to be great at that. So break that job up into like 3 part-time positions, because most people are only productive for super productive for 4 hours a day, whether they're working 4 hours or 8 hours. Our kind of peak productivity is about 4 hours a day. So you're getting more productivity out of, even 2 people working 4 hours a day. You're getting 8 hours of productivity versus 1 person working 8 hours a day, but likely only like working hard and being super productive for 4 of those 8 hours. So that would be my parting words.
I think so. And for a lot of people, that's so much more manageable, isn't it? Because being able to break that position down, being able to perhaps expand even those positions as you need it, gives you so much more leverage.
Yeah. And it's much easier to find someone who's like just really good at one thing than trying to find someone who's good or okay at 3 things.
So tell me, one last question that I have. We have a lot of the hybrid work. I think we're going to see much more outsourcing as time goes on. How does the 5-star employee put its megaphone out there so they're really discovered? Because I think companies want them. I don't think companies necessarily know how to find them.
So, I would say look at the companies that you want to look for. Like, I mean, that would be a huge favor to people that are wanting to be employed. I mean, that's what I did back in the day when I was in college. Like, I targeted who I wanted to work for. I didn't wait to see if they were posting a job. I mean, the internet was kind of around back then, maybe, but there was not the job boards or things like that. So, the old fashioned way of just like really doing research on the companies that you'd want to work for and pitching yourself to them, and also like bypassing HR. So like find, the person that you'd actually want to be reporting to in that company and pitch yourself to them, would be my advice for, a 5-star employee who wants to get snapped up and kind of go outside of, normal corporate hiring protocols, because everyone is always in the market for great employees.
I think, and getting to be more and more so. Tell me one more thing. Chief of staff. You have fascinating titles for people in your company. Chief of staff. Why? And what are some of your other titles that are fascinating?
So chief of staff. So, what's funny is September is my chief of staff. And she actually, I guess I won't bore you too much, but we worked together back in like 25 years ago with the Maverick Group when I was, in Nashville, and that business was an advertising and marketing agency. And then, we always just stayed connected on LinkedIn. And, with my multiple businesses and such, I finally came to a point where it's like, okay, I got too much going on here. I really need someone who can understand all my different businesses and everything that I'm trying to do, and just kind of like help me, like really in that chief of staff role, be helpful. Cause I kind of prided myself on that I could do everything because I was only working 10 hours a week. Well, with the all-in company and some other things going on, it just became a little bit too much. So I saw that she had, taken a new position, and I messaged her on LinkedIn, and I said, how much would it cost to hire a September? And like, I need someone like a September. And, she called me like within 5 minutes, and, like, long story short, she went through our process. She was actually interviewed by other people on our team because I already had worked with her. So I really wanted other people's opinion, since like she would be working with them. And she already knew me pretty well. And so, so she's been wonderful, but she's like, virtual bench. That's the concept of the virtual bench, like knowing people who, possibly could work and do things for you. We also, in a couple of my companies, we have small business blog editors and community curators. So, most people would label that job as a content creator. Well, I mean, that's pretty blah. That's pretty vague. So, we call it a small business blog editor and community curator, which is way more specific, and attractive to people who, want more meaning about what they're doing and such. So that's another tip there, I guess.
It's a wonderful tip. Okay. What else have we left out?
Oh gosh. Well, I don't want to make this episode too long.
Well, I think so. You've shared a tremendous amount, and I'm guessing a lot of this is in your book.
Yes.
Which again, for the sake of the audience, is the Rapid Real Guide to the 5-Star Employee Rating System.
Yeah.
And we will have information about that in the show notes. So you can go and find it and take a look at it and get some real help. So thank you so much, Danielle, for being with us today. Thank you for the work that you've done. And for those of you who are with us on Building My Legacy podcast today, thank you for being with us. And remember to visit our website at buildtomorrow with the number 2.com and our latest website, which is startwithcollaboration.com. Thanks much, everybody.
You've been listening to Building My Legacy podcast with Dr. Lois Sonstegard. To book your appointment with Dr. Sonstegard, visit www.buildtomorrow.com.